The day the order came down, the fort went quiet in a way that felt heavier than gunsmoke. Even the flies seemed to slow, as if they too knew what name had just been spoken. Red Thunder, the most feared Apache ever taken alive. Men who had ridden through fire and drought went pale when his name moved from mouth to mouth. Stories clung to him like dust on a trail. He was said to walk out of ambushes untouched, to stare down rifles without blinking, to carry a silence that broke stronger men than bullets ever could. Now he sat chained within stone walls, wounded, filthy, and refusing all hands that came near him. That was when the task fell on her. Willow Ash had never been meant for such work. She was not a soldier, not a healer by rank, not a woman of command. She was raised on dry land and hard prayers, taught to keep her eyes low and her words fewer. Her hands knew washing and mending, tending fires and keeping peace between rough men who drank too much and spoke too loud. She had buried family, crossed burning plains, and learned early that survival often meant obedience. Still, when the officer's voice named her and told her what must be done, something inside her pulled tight like a rope about to snap. "He will not let a man near him," the officer said, eyes fixed on the dirt as if ashamed of the order. "He is wounded too already. He needs to be cleaned. Fever will take him if he stays as he is. You are to do it." She did not answer at first. The room smelled of iron and fear. Somewhere beyond the walls, a crow cried out. Willow Ash thought of the stories she had heard whispered by lantern light. Red Thunder who burned homesteads. Red Thunder who took scalps. Red Thunder who laughed when lead tore flesh. No one spoke of him as a man. He was spoken of like a storm or a curse. She nodded because refusal had never been a luxury she could afford. The wash chamber was old, carved from stone, laid by hands long gone. Water steamed faintly in a round basin set into the floor. Candles flickered against damp walls, throwing shadows that looked like moving spirits. When they brought Red Thunder in, even bound and wounded, the room seemed to shrink. He was broader than she expected, scarred in ways that told long stories without words. His dark eyes lifted once, slow and steady, and fixed on her. There was no rage in them, no plea either, just a watchful stillness that made her throat dry. The guards backed away at once, eager to put stone and distance between themselves and the man they feared. Chains clinked softly as Red Thunder was seated in the basin. Blood had dried along his side, dark against his skin. Dirt and ash clung to him like a second hide. The air felt charged, as if one wrong breath might spark violence. Willow Ash stood at the edge of the water, her hands trembling despite her will. She had bathed wounded men before, soldiers brought back broken from the field, their bravado stripped away with their boots. This was different. This man did not bow to pain or circumstance. He sat like the earth itself, unmoved, unyielding. She dipped the cloth into warm water, wrung it out, and stepped closer. Every lesson she had ever learned told her not to turn her back, not to show fear. Still, fear sat heavy in her chest. She could feel his gaze without looking at him. When the cloth touched his arm, she flinched despite herself. Nothing happened. The silence stretched. Water lapped gently against stone. Candle flames wavered. Slowly, carefully, she cleaned the dirt from his skin, working around wounds with a tenderness she did not know she possessed. Red Thunder did not resist. He did not speak. His breathing was slow, controlled. The breath of a man who had mastered himself long before chains ever tried. As minutes passed, Willow Ash began to notice things that did not fit the tales. The scars were not wild or careless. They were the marks of survival, of battles chosen and endured. The muscles beneath her hands were tense but disciplined, not coiled for sudden attack. Once, when the cloth brushed too close to a deep cut, his jaw tightened. That was all. No sound escaped him. She found herself wondering what it cost a man to become so feared. What had been taken from him long before this moment? When she reached for his shoulder, he finally spoke. His voice was low, roughened by thirst and pain, yet steady as stone. "You are not afraid like the others." The words startled her. She met his eyes before she could stop herself. "I am afraid," she said, honest because there was no use pretending. I am just still here. Something flickered across his face then. Not anger. Not softness either. Recognition, perhaps? She continued her task, heart pounding. With every passing moment, the room felt less like a place of execution and more like a crossing point between two worlds. She was raised to believe men like him were monsters shaped by cruelty. Yet as the water darkened and the dirt washed away, she saw the careful lines of a life lived by codes she did not know, but sensed were strong. When she cleaned the blood from his side, she saw symbols carved into his skin, marks of belonging, of history. Her fingers paused before she could stop them. Red Thunder watched her closely now. You see, he said quietly. Yes, she answered, though she was not sure what she truly saw. Outside, thunder rolled far away, a sound that made the candles shiver. Willow Ash felt as though the walls themselves were listening. She realized then that this was not simply a task of washing flesh. She was standing at the edge of something dangerous, something that could undo everything she thought she understood. The most feared Apache sat before her, wounded and bound, yet unbroken. And in his silence, she sensed a truth buried deeper than any scar. A truth no one at the fort wanted to face. As she reached for fresh water, Red Thunder leaned forward slightly, chains tightening, eyes never leaving hers. When this is done, he said, voice barely above a breath, they will ask you what you saw. Her hand stilled in the water. The question she had not yet asked rose sharp in her mind. And what should I say? She whispered. Red Thunder's gaze hardened, not with threat, but with warning. Say nothing, he replied, or everything will change. The candles guttered. The water rippled. And Willow Ash understood, too late, that this bath was only the beginning. Willow Ash carried his words with her long after she left the wash chamber. They followed her down the stone corridor, past the iron doors and the smell of oil lamps, past the low murmur of soldiers who stopped talking when she passed. Say nothing, he had said, or everything will change. She did not yet know what that meant, but she felt the weight of it pressing against her ribs. Heavy as a locked chest buried in the ground. Outside, the fort breathed again. Boots scraped. A horse snorted in the yard. Somewhere, a hammer rang against metal. Life went on, unaware that something had shifted beneath its feet. Willow Ash returned the basin and cloth, her hands still damp, her thoughts restless. Men glanced at her with curiosity and unease. They wanted to ask questions. She could see it in their eyes, but none dared. Fear of Red Thunder had a way of sealing mouths shut. She reached her quarters and closed the door behind her. Leaning against it for a moment, as if the wood might steady her, memories stirred, old and sharp. She remembered her father's voice, calm even when the world burned. He had taught her that fear was not a thing to outrun, but a thing to understand. Fear told stories. It carried warnings. That lesson had kept her alive more than once. Sleep did not come easily that night. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Red Thunder's gaze, unblinking, searching. She wondered how many people had ever looked back at him without hatred or hunger for blood. She wondered how many stories had been written about him by men who had never stood close enough to hear him breathe. At dawn, knock came hard against her door. Captain Ironhail stood outside, broad as a barn door, his jaw set like stone. He was a man built for command, known for breaking rebellions and rules with equal force. His reputation reached farther than his shadow. You did the task, he said, not a question. Yes. Did he speak? The pause before her answer felt like a step off a cliff. Only a few words. Ironhail studied her, eyes sharp. And what were they? She thought of the wash chamber, of the warning in Red Thunder's voice. She chose her words carefully. He asked for water. Nothing more. The captain's gaze lingered, searching for cracks. At last he nodded. Good. You will return today. Keep him clean. Keep him alive. Orders are coming from the east, and they want him breathing when they arrive. Who are they? She asked before she could stop herself. Ironhail's mouth tightened. Men who ask questions with ropes and promises? That is all you need to know. As he turned away, she felt the chill of what was coming. Red Thunder was not meant to survive this place for long. He was meant to be used, displayed, broken into a story that suited others. She returned to the wash chamber later that day. This time, the guards did not retreat as far, though their hands stayed close to their rifles. Red Thunder sat where she had left him. Chains loosened just enough to allow movement. The water was fresh. The wounds cleaner now, but still angry with pain. "You came back," he said. "Yes, many would not. I was told to." A faint curve touched his mouth, gone almost before it appeared. "Orders," he said. "They build strong cages." She worked in silence, washing and tending, her movements steadier now. She noticed how he shifted to make space for her, how he did not crowd her even when chains allowed it. It was a small thing, but it mattered. "Why are you feared?" she asked suddenly. His eyes lifted to hers. "Because fear is easier than truth." "What is the truth?" He looked away then, gaze fixing on the stone wall. "That I have buried more of my own than yours. That I have watched the land bleed and still stand. That I am not finished." The words settled between them, heavy and unfinished. Willow Ash felt the echo of them long after she finished her work. Over the next days, a strange rhythm formed. She came at set hours. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. She learned fragments of his past without him telling it straight. The way he touched the symbols on his skin when he spoke of loss. The way his voice hardened when the sound of wagons rolled past the fort walls. She learned, too, that the fort itself was uneasy. Whispers spread. Some soldiers claimed Red Thunder had escaped chains before, that he carried a curse. Others swore he would be hanged within the week. The name of a man called Judge Blackamore passed from mouth to mouth. A figure said to arrive with papers and authority strong enough to bend any truth he chose. One evening, as Willow Ash left the chamber, she nearly collided with a man she had not seen before. He was tall, lean, dressed in fine black cloth that did not belong on frontier dust. His eyes were pale and cold. "You are the woman," he said. "I am Willow Ash." "I am Elias Crow," he replied. "I have come to observe." "Observe what?" "History," he said, smiling without warmth. "It is being made here." She felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the evening air. History does not belong to observers alone. Crow's smile widened slightly. "No, it belongs to those who write it." That night, Willow Ash dreamed of rivers running backward and birds flying without shadows. She woke before dawn with a certainty she could not name. Red Thunder was not waiting for rescue. He was waiting for something else. When she entered the wash chamber the next day, she found him standing, chains taut, his posture alert. He turned as she approached. "They are close," he said. "Who?" "The ones who carry paper like weapons." Her heart quickened. "What will they do to you?" He studied her for a long moment. "They will ask me to speak against my own, to turn stories into lies that serve them. And if you refuse, they will make an example," he said simply. The guards shifted uneasily, as if they could feel the truth in his words. Willow Ash swallowed. "Why tell me this?" "Because you listen," he said. "And because when the moment comes, you will be asked to choose." "Choose what?" "Silence," he replied. "Or witness." The word struck her like a blow. Witnessed meant danger. It meant standing where others turned away. It meant carrying truth that could not be uncarried. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time. The fort braced itself as if for a storm that could not be outrun. Willow Ash looked at Red Thunder, at the man the world had named a monster, and felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. She did not yet know what choice she would make. She only knew that whatever came next would leave nothing untouched. The wagons arrived at noon, their wheels groaning like tired animals as they rolled through the fort gates. Dust rose and settled over everything, clinging to coats, to lashes, to the edges of patience. Willow Ash watched from a distance, her hands busy with linen she did not need to fold. She counted 3 wagons, heavy and guarded, and a 4th that carried only 1 rider. Even before he dismounted, she knew him by the way men straightened when he passed. Judge Blackamore had come. He was smaller than she expected, his frame narrow, his hair iron gray and pulled tight. What made him dangerous was not size, but certainty. He moved as if the ground belonged to him, as if laws followed in his wake. His eyes scanned the fort with quick judgment, already arranging facts into shapes that pleased him. Captain Iron Hail met him with stiff formality. Words were exchanged, hands shaken, smiles offered and returned like dull blades. Willow Ash could not hear what was said, but she felt the tension ripple outward. The fort had crossed a line from holding a prisoner to hosting an execution of truth. Red Thunder sensed it too. When she entered the wash chamber later, she found him seated and still, his eyes closed, breath deep and measured. He opened his eyes as she approached. "He walks with a shadow," said quietly. "You have not seen him," she replied. "I have seen men like him," Red Thunder said. "They do not fear blood. They fear disorder." She dipped the cloth into water, her movements slower than usual. "He will ask questions. He will demand answers," Red Thunder corrected. "There is a difference." Outside the chamber, Ilias Crow lingered more often now. He watched Willow Ash with open interest, his pale eyes taking in every detail. One afternoon, he stopped her in the corridor. "You have access others do not," he said. "I carry water and cloth," she replied. "Power often hides in plain things," Crow said. "Tell me, does he pray?" She stiffened. "That is not for me to say." Crow leaned closer, his voice low. "Be careful. Sympathy can be mistaken for treason." "Truth is not treason," she said before fear could stop her. Crow studied her, then laughed softly. "In my experience, truth is whatever survives." As days passed, the questioning began. Judge Blackamore did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He invited. He spoke of peace, of protection, of a future shaped by cooperation. Red Thunder listened without interruption, his face unreadable. Willow Ash stood at the edge of the chamber, present only as a necessity, yet feeling every word strike like flint. "Your people need leaders who understand the new order," Blackamore said. "Men who can guide them into safety." "Safety behind fences," Red Thunder replied. "Safety within law," Blackamore countered. "Law written without us," Red Thunder said calmly. Blackmoor smiled. "Thin and patient. Law is written by those who endure." The exchange left a taste of ash in Willow Ash's mouth. She saw how the judge's questions circled, how each answer was weighed not for truth but for usefulness. She saw, too, how Red Thunder gave nothing he did not choose to give. At night, whispers moved through the fort. Some soldiers admired Red Thunder's composure. Others grew restless, eager for a clear ending. Captain Iron Hail walked the yards longer, his jaw clenched, torn between duty and a respect he did not want to name. One evening, Hail stopped Willow Ash near the well. "You are too close to this," he said. "I am doing my work." "Your work puts you between forces that will crush you," he warned. She met his gaze. "Then perhaps they should look where they step." Hole sighed, a sound like wind through broken boards. "You remind me of someone I once knew," he said, then turned away before she could ask who. Red Thunder's wounds healed slowly. His strength returned in small signs, the steadiness of his stance, the clarity of his gaze. Chains still bound him, but Willow Ash sensed a gathering beneath his calm, like a river swelling under ice. One afternoon, as she tended him, he spoke without looking at her. "They think I am alone." "You are," she said, then regretted the words. He shook his head. "Alone is not the same as isolated." "What do you mean?" He finally met her eyes. "Stories travel faster than men. Truth finds cracks." That night, a storm broke over the fort, rain hammering stone and wood. Thunder split the sky, close enough to rattle bones. Willow Ash lay awake, listening, her thoughts tangled. She wondered what stories Red Thunder carried, which ones he meant to release. The next morning, Judge Blackamore summoned her. The room smelled of ink and damp paper. Maps lay spread across the table, lines drawn and redrawn as if land itself could be erased. "You spend time with him," Blackamore said. "I perform my duties. You hear his words." "I hear many words," she replied. Blackamore smiled. "Then you know he is dangerous." "He is a man," she said. Blackamoor's eyes hardened for a fraction of a second. Men shape history. That is why they must be guided. What do you want from me? Willow Ash asked. To understand him, Blackamoor said. To help him understand us. She left the meeting with her pulse racing. The judge did not see her as a threat. He saw her as a tool. When she returned to the wash chamber, Red Thunder was waiting. He has spoken to you, he said. Yes. He will ask you to soften the ground, Red Thunder said. To make my words safe for him? What will you do? She asked. I will speak when it matters, he replied. Not before. The tension grew like a held breath. Elias Crow began writing more, his pen scratching late into the night. Captain Iron Hail drilled his men harder, as if discipline could hold back what was coming. Judge Blackamoor prepared documents with careful strokes. Each page a net cast wide. Willow Ash stood at the center of it all. Unseen, yet essential, carrying water, carrying words, carrying a growing understanding that this conflict was not about one man's fate alone. It was about who would be allowed to define the past and command the future. As she left the chamber one evening, Red Thunder's voice followed her. When they move, it will be quick. Her hand paused on the door. Move how? He did not answer. Outside, the fort lights flickered as the wind rose again. Willow Ash felt the world leaning toward a moment that could not be stopped, only met. The fort felt tighter with each passing hour, as if the walls themselves were leaning inward to hear what would happen next. Willow Ash moved through her duties with care, aware of every glance, every pause in conversation when she entered a room. She was no longer invisible. She had become a quiet question people did not know how to ask. Judge Blackamoor's presence pressed down on the place like a weight. His papers multiplied. His meetings stretched late into the night. Men went in confident and came out subdued, carrying instructions wrapped in polite language. Elias Crow followed him like a shadow, recording, observing, shaping moments into lines that would one day claim authority. Red Thunder was brought less water now, less light. The wash chamber grew colder, the air sharper. When Willow Ash entered, she sensed the shift immediately. They are preparing, Red Thunder said without preamble. For what? For a moment they can control, he replied. They will gather witnesses. They will call it justice. Her chest tightened. And you, I will stand, he said. That is all a man can promise. Captain Ironhail came to her that evening, his face drawn. There will be a formal proceeding, he said. At dawn tomorrow. Is that even possible here? She asked. Hale's laugh was bitter. When power decides, it builds its own rooms. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. I have seen men like Blackamoor before. They do not leave space for mercy. Then why allow it? She asked. Hale looked away. Because refusing would mean open defiance. And this fort would burn before sunrise. The words hung heavy. Willow Ash understood then that fear had many shapes. Some wore chains. Others wore badges. That night, sleep abandoned her entirely. She sat by the small window in her quarters, watching clouds slide past the moon. She thought of Red Thunder's words about stories and cracks. She thought of her father again, of the way he had faced a flood with nothing but a shovel and stubborn hope, believing that holding ground mattered even when water rose higher than sense allowed before dawn. She rose and dressed in silence. The fort stirred early. Boots echoed. Doors opened and closed. The air smelled of wet earth and oil. Willow Ash made her way to the wash chamber one last time before the proceeding. Red Thunder stood when she entered. Chains still bound him, but his posture was tall, his presence filling the room. They will ask you to speak, he said. I am not important, she replied. He stepped closer, the chain between them tightening. You are human, he said. That is always important. She swallowed. What if I make it worse? You already live inside the worse, he said gently. Anything else is movement. Footsteps approached outside. Voices murmured. Time was narrowing. Why trust me? She asked. Red Thunder held her gaze. Because you saw me when I had nothing to give. That is where truth begins. The guards arrived, their expressions strained. They led Red Thunder away, chains clinking, the sound echoing down corridors that had never known such weight. Willow Ash followed at a distance, her heart pounding so hard she feared it might give her away. The gathering took place in the largest hall, cleared of its usual clutter. Soldiers lined the walls. Judge Blackamore stood at the center, papers in hand, his face calm and composed. Elias Crow took his place nearby, pen ready. Captain Ironhail stood off to the side, rigid eyes forward. Red Thunder was brought in last. The room shifted as he entered, attention snapping to him like iron to a magnet. He stood tall, despite the chains, his gaze sweeping the room once. Taking it all in, Judge Blackmore began to speak, his voice measured and smooth. He spoke of order, of peace, of the need for clarity in troubled lands. He spoke of Red Thunder as both threat and opportunity, a man whose cooperation could save lives. When Red Thunder was invited to respond, the room held its breath. He spoke calmly, refusing the offers dressed as kindness, naming losses without accusation, naming truths without apology. His words did not rise. They settled. Blackamore listened, nodding, then turned to Willow Ash. "You," he said. "You have been close to him. You have heard him unguarded. Tell us what kind of man he truly is." Every eye turned to her. The moment Red Thunder had warned her about had arrived. Her mouth went dry. She felt the pull of silence, the safety of saying nothing, of letting the current carry her past this point. She also felt the weight of witness, heavy but solid. "He is wounded," she began, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "He is chained, and still he has not lied to you." Murmurs rippled through the room. Blackamore's smile tightened. "That is not what I asked." "You asked what kind of man he is," Willow Ash said. "A man who knows who he is, even when everything is taken. A man who does not beg." The judge's eyes flashed. "Careful." Captain Ironhail shifted. Tension etched into his face. Elias Crow's pen hesitated for the first time. Willow Ash continued, the words coming now like water breaking free. "You speak of order. He speaks of survival. Those are not opposites." The room felt on the edge of fracture. Red Thunder watched her, expression unreadable. Something like gratitude flickered there. Blackamore raised a hand, regaining control. "This is enough," he said. "Proceedings will continue without further commentary." But something had changed. The careful shape Blackamore had built wavered. Seeds of doubt had been planted in the open. Outside, the wind rose, rattling windows. Thunder rolled in the distance, closer than before. The fort seemed to hold its breath along with them. As the gathering dispersed, Ironhail caught Willow Ash's arm briefly. "What you did," he said quietly, "you may have bought time. Or you may have sealed fate." "Whose?" she asked. "Everyone's," he replied. Red Thunder was led away again. But this time, heads followed him with something other than fear. Questions stirred. Stories shifted. Willow Ash returned to her quarters, hands shaking now that the moment had passed. She knew the climax was still ahead. Blackamore would not retreat easily. Crow would write. Orders would come. But beneath it all, something had cracked. As night fell, Willow Ash stood by the window once more. In the distance, lightning flashed, illuminating the land beyond the fort walls. She thought of open ground, of rivers that changed course slowly. Then all at once, somewhere below, chains clinked softly as Red Thunder settled into stillness. The storm gathered its strength, and Willow Ash knew that, when it broke, nothing would remain the same. The storm broke before midnight. Rain fell hard and steady, washing dust from stone and wood, turning the yard into dark mud that swallowed footprints as soon as they were made. Thunder rolled overhead, not sharp and violent, but deep and constant, like the land itself was speaking. Willow Ash did not sleep. She sat fully dressed, waiting, knowing that moments like this rarely passed quietly. Her door opened without a knock. Captain Ironhail stood there, rain clinging to his coat, his face set with resolve she had not seen before. "Judge Blackamore has sent word east," he said. "But the wire is down. The storm took it." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means decisions must be made here," Hale replied, "not borrowed from elsewhere." They moved quickly through the fort, the rain hiding their steps. Guards shifted positions, confused by sudden orders that came not from Blackamore's voice but from Hale's. Years of command carried weight even when certainty did not. In the holding chamber, Elias Crow waited, papers pressed tight against his chest. "You have no authority to do this," he protested as Hale ordered him aside. "I have responsibility," Hale said, "and tonight that will have to be enough." They reached Red Thunder's cell. He stood as they entered as if he had been expecting them all along. The rain drummed against stone above, a steady rhythm. "The ground moves," Red Thunder said calmly. Hale met his gaze. "I will not pretend this is clean," he said, "but I will not allow a lie to end a man." He turned to Willow Ash. "You spoke truth when it mattered. Now tell me what must be done." She felt the weight of the moment settle into her bones. "Let him speak once more," she said. "Not alone. Let those who listen decide with open eyes." Hale considered, then nodded. At first light, Judge Blackamore arrived furious and soaked, his composure cracking as control slipped through his fingers. "This is mutiny," he snapped. "This is command," Hale replied evenly. "The fort stands under my charge until relief arrives. You will wait." Morning came gray and clean, the storm spent. The yard filled again, quieter this time, less rigid. Soldiers stood not as an audience but as witnesses. Some civilians from nearby land had gathered too, drawn by rumor and instinct. Red Thunder was brought forward without spectacle. Chains still bound him, but they felt lighter now, more like form than fate. He spoke plainly. He spoke of land and loss, of broken promises, and the cost of survival. He did not ask forgiveness, nor did he threaten. He spoke as a man who had carried grief long enough to set it down without fear. When he finished, silence held. Then one voice spoke. Then another. Questions followed, not sharp but searching. Judge Blackamore tried to interject, but his words no longer shaped the room. Authority had shifted without announcement. Elias Crow lowered his pen. Captain Iron Hale stepped forward. "This fort will not be remembered for blood," he said. "It will be remembered for restraint." The decision came not as a cheer, but as a shared breath released. Red Thunder would not be sent east in chains. He would be escorted beyond the fort, released under watchful agreement. His life, his own again. Judge Blackamore left before noon, his power diminished by a record he could not bend. Elias Crow stayed behind, rewriting, slower now, more careful with each word. Willow Ash walked with Red Thunder to the edge of the land, where grass pushed through wet soil and the air smelled new. They stood for a moment, neither speaking. "You chose witness," Red Thunder said. "So did you," she replied. He nodded. "Stories change when shared." He turned to go, then paused. "The world is still hard," he said, "but it bends." She watched him walk away, unbound, until distance folded him into the land. Life at the fort shifted gradually. Fear loosened its grip. Captain Iron Hale remained, his authority steadier for having been tested. Elias Crow wrote less and listened more. Willow Ash returned to her quiet duties, though nothing felt small anymore. She had learned that courage did not always shout. Sometimes it stood still and spoke when asked. On clear nights, she would step outside and look toward the open ground beyond the walls. She knew the story would travel, shaped by many mouths, but at its center would remain a simple truth. One woman was forced to face the most feared man alive, and in doing so, she discovered not a monster, but a mirror. The land endured, and so did the people who chose to see each other clearly.